So it's been 3 days since this tank has been set up and running. I really haven't done a whole lot with it other than come down and take a look. I still don't have the lights that I want to put on the tank, but I may have found a way to kind of approximate how I want them to look. What I'm doing is a little experimental. So what I'm going to do in this video is, one, I'm going to give you a sneak look at what it looks like now with the big light that's on it. The lights that are going to go on the tank aren't going to be this bright. And I'm going to do a big water change and take you again through the filter system, how I turn it on and off. We're going to install a heater, and then we're also going to put on the glass canopies. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to put the lights on it in such a way that it should approximate what this is going to look like. Oh, and I have found something really cool that I'm going to attempt to put in this tank that I think is going to be really, really cool. It's going to be an Aquascape and game changer. Stay tuned. So here's the tank. It is 3 days after it's been set up. The water is pretty clear, a little bit cloudy, but that's to be expected. There was a lot of new wood that went into this tank. The light that I have sitting on top of the tank right now is a current LED light, a big long strip light. So it's actually putting a very even amount of light across the middle of the tank. I've actually got the light turned up pretty high. Maybe I can turn up a little higher here. But I want you to watch what happens as I turn the light down. Take a look and you can see how the background, you can kind of see it. And as I dim that tank down, the background pretty much disappears. Now, when you're actually standing in front of the tank, you can still see it. It's hard to see on the camera, but it's still there, but it's really, really murky. Now imagine this with spotlights and really dim. And this may seem like it's a little too dark, but I'll tell you, it's going to look really, really natural when it's all said and done. Let's start by taking a look at the flow. Here are the two pumps that I have on the tank. Both are Jabal pumps. This pump right here is controlling the two outside siphon stoppers, so two emitters coming from one pump. And I've got this one running at about 50% capacity. And the one that is flowing through the single emitter, I've got that running at its lowest capacity. I'll have you take a look at that. There you can kind of see the flow rate. Now watch what happens when I really pump this sucker up. I'm going to take it all the way up to 100%. There you go. Now that's really, really rocking. And it almost overpowers the overflows. I really can't run this at 100%. I don't know if you can see that very well or not. I'm going to have to get more light on it. Let me try this. There, now you can take a look and you see that overflow is being completely overpowered. If I let this run as it's going, I suspect that I would end up having some problems with, oh, there goes my lids on the overflows are floating away. So you definitely don't want to have too much power. These pumps are too powerful for these overflows. So let's take a look and see how things are going inside the Stealthbox. Okay, so I haven't adjusted it for since I set it up. And so what I'm seeing is that the water is dropping below my secondary overflow. So I want to actually change that. I want to go ahead and adjust that. I'm going to close down my main valve a little bit. I'm going to close it down quite a bit. I'm going to let it come back up. I'm going to let it fill up that secondary overflow. Let it come up a little bit. Now I'm going to open my secondary overflow just a tad. There we go. And hopefully it's going to stay steady. That was right there is kind of the way I would like it. You can see that both the overflows are underwater. The bulkhead's underwater. The water really isn't rising up to the top of the emergency overflow. But as I mentioned before, sometimes it takes a few days to fiddle with it and get it to where it's actually working again. But okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off a pump. Let's take a look at what happens. I'm going to turn off the one that feeds the two outside siphon stoppers first. And you'll notice that no water is flowing down through this. This one will stop in just a sec as soon as the water goes down a little bit. So the back siphon, there it goes. The back siphon from the tank is stopped, so water is not going backwards into the sump. A little bit will go at first, but not a whole lot. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn off the pump for the one going across the surface. Some people have commented, question about that pump going across the surface like that. I actually like it because I want to have that surface agitation and the effect that it's going to have on the lights once I have it on the tank. It's going to create a really interesting shimmer effect. Okay, pumps are off. So you're still hearing some trickle go through the filter system. And as soon as it is completely settled and stop moving, we'll get into the process of draining water and starting this water change. I've started the water change. I've actually got two drains running. I don't really need two drains today. I'm not cleaning the sumps. I'm going to show you how I would empty the sumps though. This is the main one. I picked these up. These are off of the old, I think they were the Arenas. Oh, I forget exactly what canister filters they are, but the best part about them, from my experience, is the intake tubes are great because you can daisy chain them. You can end up with these big long tubes that go all the way to the bottom of your tank. And I have a floor drain in the other room, and I'm just running the water to that. The other one is using those same fittings that I can just daisy chain together like that. And with a straight tube like this, I can clean schmutz and stuff out of the bottom of these sumps. I'm going to end up doing a pretty big aquascaping overhaul this water change, so I need to take everything out of the tank. I need a heater in the system, so while the water is draining, I'm going to go ahead and put this Ebu Jaeger 300 watt heater into the reservoir tub. This HDP material in the tubs is not going to be harmed by heaters sitting on the bottom. And it takes a while for the water to drain from a big tank like this, so while I'm waiting for that, I'll go ahead and get the glass canopies ready to go on the aquarium. So here it is, the beast. This wonderful piece of wood was picked up in our local Yahara River, and I brought it home. It is heavy, it's dense, it's going to sink right away. And I have eyeballed it and I've measured it, and I think it's going to fit in the aquarium just the way it is, but I got to do a few things to prepare it first. This log has been in the river quite a while, so there's no living material on it. So the first thing I'm going to do is give it a really good rinse to get all the loose debris and mud and duckweed and anything else on it off. Then it gets sprayed down very liberally with a strong bleach solution. It is a sunny and windy day, so this bleach will actually dry in a couple hours. After it dries completely, I give it a good rinse. Maggie is supervising. Then I will let it dry and hit it with the bleach solution once again, then let it dry and then rinse it. So 3 rinses and 2 bleaches. So normally when you're looking at a piece of wood or a piece of hardscape this big, you have 2 concerns about getting it into the tank. Especially one like this, it's very three-dimensional, it can sit in many different ways. I know there are certain ways that it won't actually be able to set in the tank, but there's a couple ways that based upon my measurements, it is going to be able to sit in the tank. So that's the first thing. Will it actually fit in the tank? The second one, and usually the most important, is can you actually get it into the tank without having to cut it because of the cross braces. I'm not actually worried about that at all because I'm going to try to get it in here without doing this. But with a custom aquarium, you can remove the cross brace and you can put it back. It's the only company that you can do that with their aquarium that I know of. If you know somebody else that has a removable cross brace, please let me know because we patented it. But before I do that, I'm going to remove all the siphon stoppers and the H2 overflows just in case I bump one of them. I don't want to break any bulkheads or anything. That would be really bad. One thing I have to be careful of is not to hit that cross brace with this log because it is aluminum, which means it can bend. So I'm going to try to do is get this in so this corner is back up in that corner of the tank and this corner up there is up in the front corner of the tank. So in looking at this, some of the challenges I see are I'm not sure I can get this piece up into that corner very easily, but we're going to try. I'm starting to think that maybe this piece isn't going to fit at all. That would really suck because it's a really nice piece. I could cut it. I could actually reduce the length of it a little bit and you wouldn't notice it. Alright, so we tried the let's get lucky method and that didn't work. So now let's try to be a little smarter about it. So the green stake at the bottom of the frame, that is basically the front edge of the aquarium. The piece of wood over on the left there is the left side of the aquarium from the front aspect of it. And the cracks in the driveway represent the right-hand side of the aquarium and that the farthest I can go in the corners because of that Universal Rocks background. What I was trying to do in the tank was this. Right like that. And to make that happen, I'm going to have to cut this corner here, but it will be flat against the glass. That's not bad. And then I'd have to cut back here, but then I've got this nice curve this way and a curve that way. That's it's kind of a tough dilemma. I could do what a lot of YouTubers do and have you guys comment down below and take a vote and see which way you like. But I'm going to get this done today. I'll let you know what I decide when I put it in the tank. Actually, that's not so bad. That looks pretty natural too. Yeah, actually I like that because now it almost doesn't look like that stump in the back. It's almost part of the log itself. It's kind of hard to see. It's going to look a lot better once the tank is clear. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and re-aquascape this thing and get it started to fill back up with water. The glass canopy for the front of the tank covers the entire front half of the aquarium, with a small lifting hinge section at the very front that will fit just in front of the wall. The glass canopy that's going to go on the back end of the tank, I had arranged a little differently than the one that's on the front. Instead of having the glass hinge, so where it's facing the front or the back, I actually had the glass cut so that the glass hinge hinges over here to this side, so that I can access the aquarium from over here to feed and so forth. You'll also notice that the glass comes all the way edge to edge all the way around. It doesn't have the little plastic strips. I'm actually kind of regretting that a little bit, because eventually I wanted to put an automatic feeder on this aquarium, and the only way I'm going to be able to do that is to cut this glass probably up here on this end so that I can put an automatic feeder there. But what I was thinking was I wanted this aquarium to be as close to evaporation proof as I could get it. The glass canopies on the filter system and tight glass canopies on this, very little water is going to escape. So one of the other things I wanted to show you was I wanted to try to approximate what the lighting was going to be like in this aquarium. And the lights aren't here yet, and they're not actually aquarium lights that I bought. Think of spotlight LEDs that you can adjust the diameter of the lens to allow the light to spread or be narrow. And there's going to be 4 to 6 of them on this tank, and it's going to be like spotlights coming down in through the water. Now, I have LED lights over top of the tank right now, and these are just small, the same kind of lights you might put underneath a kitchen cabinet. But they're not really doing exactly what I want them to do, because you're not seeing the shimmer in the bottom of the tank. But when I use a spotlight, I put it right over the middle of that flow, you should see some shimmer in the tank. Also, these lights really aren't bright enough. The back of the tank just disappears. I mean, I can, even where I'm standing, even without the camera, I can't see the back wall, just barely the front edge of the roots on that deep water background. And that's intentional. I want this to be what's called an infinity tank, where the fish can move backwards and forwards and disappear. And I'm going to adjust those lights so you can see what happens when I move the lights around, so you can see what the effect of just angling lights can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the lights out. There's currently 3 on the tank. I'm going to pull out the middle one. And look what that does to the level of shadow in the tank in the bottom. And right now I've got it, I'm going to put it back, and I can move it, and I can change the shadow, and I can change what is highlighted based on just where those lights are at. And the lights that I'm going to put on this tank are going to be even more specific. See, I'm going to go use ones in the back now. See, I can take this light, and I can move it back here in the back, and you can see that background. But all I have to do is angle the light a different way, move it forward, and it disappears. If I bring the lights and I actually point them towards the outsides of the tank, then the outside edges are what you're going to see. If I take those same lights and just pivot them so they're looking inside the tank, it'll completely change the look and feel of the aquarium. So the effect that I'm going for is to be able to use lots of little independent lights. I'm not going to grow any plants in here, so it really doesn't matter what the color spectrum is, other than the help for the colors of the fish. But I don't need to grow plants. I don't need to be brighter, but it is going to be a little brighter than this. But the directionality of those lights is what's going to create the mood and the atmosphere inside this aquascape. And this really is the first time I've even had a chance to look at it and play with it. And I really think it's going to work. I think it's pretty cool. So I'm shooting this closing about 2 days after I've done the water change and added the hardscape, and the water is starting to clear up pretty good. Still a little bit of cloudiness to it. The light that's on the tank right now is a big current LED strip light. It's about as bright as I hope to have this tank, but it still is more of an even light effect, and I'm going to get my spotlight soon, and we'll see what's a little bit different. So we're going to leave this project for a while. It's probably going to be about a week or maybe a week and a half before I can actually get to the point where I'm ready to put fish in this tank. Got to get the lights set up. I have to work on the heat. The heater that I put in this tank, it was a pretty old heater, and after giving it a couple days, even cranked up real high, it just wasn't even doing the job, and even touching the heater wasn't even hot enough to be doing the job. So I've got to order a new heater for this tank. But pretty soon, we're going to get fish in it. So we'll be moving on. I'm working on the bioactive vivarium this week, so you can expect some videos coming on that pretty soon. If you like this kind of programming, as always, please hit that subscribe and the bell so you get notifications of when new videos come out. And as always, every time, I thank you very much for watching Ted's Fish Room.